feel a bit of a usurper, really. I'm from a pure standards business. So let me take you through something about GS1. It's been mentioned a couple of times. We are a standards organization, the same as OMA. We are member-owned, we're not for profit, and we have over 1 million companies worldwide who pay a small fee to 111 member organizations throughout the world. And for that, effectively, they are members of GS1, they run GS1, and they get to use, if you like, our standards through doing that. So we come from industry. We don't come from a consumer side. Our background is in B2B, and I don't apologize for that. But what we have found out, of course, which has been well pointed out by Scanby and by Terence, is consumers are now starting to use the code that we developed for a B2B process for effectively supply chain to point of sale. Interesting fact, by the way, I also realize we're 40-year-old today, and the mobile phone is 40-year-old this year. The first mobile phone call was made 40 years ago, so the same year. So we now find that consumers are using their mobile phones to scan the codes that effectively we put on traditionally to make sure that you didn't have to key a price in at the point of sale. That was the basic reason for the UPC and the AN code. Having said all that, we're best known for the barcode. I hate going to dinner parties when people say, "And what do you do for a living?" Because you say GS1, they say GS who, then you've got to just say, "We're the barcode people." Interesting little story, when my granddaughter, who was 4-year-old at the time, found out I was joining GS1, and her mother tried to explain what Granddad did for a living, her answer to that was, "Does he take a ruler and a pen to work?" She thought I drew barcodes for a living. However, we're not just in the barcode business. Little known fact, EDI, electronic data interchange, all of the business messages that drive the whole of B2B, that's orders, invoices, etc. You know most of these are not on paper anymore. They use GS1 standards. RFID tags, so the tags that you get often in garments, shoes, RFID rather than other things we heard about today. Those are GS1 standards called EPC standards. So we have a number of standards, but because of the audience, I'll stick today probably to the barcode more than anything. We found there's a great affinity between the barcode and the mobile phone. I won't go into numbers. I had some numbers, but I think Scanby had better numbers than me. They were more up to date. But basically, we are finding, as I said, that these mobile phones are scanning our barcodes. What's really happened is, instead of having 1 million scanners in the world, which are all in checkouts, we now have over 1 billion scanners in the world that's in everybody's hands. So our members came to us. We do what our members ask us to do. And our members came to us and said, "We believe we have an issue here, we have a problem." So if we look at the digital growth, again, the only numbers I'll try to give you, since you've got much better numbers than me, but we're finding that digital will directly or indirectly influence over 80% of the retail growth in the next 4 years. When you've got 1 million companies who are effectively the retailers and the manufacturers, that's a number that scares them. If we have the digital, the scanning of barcodes, etc., will actually drive growth in the industry, then that makes them sit up and take notice. So we have things like 50% of people who use mobile phones to check prices. Well, we all know that. It's the biggest application around. But 50% of shoppers have interacted with a brand. Again, if you're a CPG, if you're a Nestle, a Unilever, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you're very interested if 50% of your customers are trying to interact with you. And online shopping intentions for grocery, a big market for us, of course, is projected to be 3 or 10 times the current rates. Okay, so we've now ascertained that the product barcode gives that link between the digital and the physical world. In the physical world, it was quite easy, and out of stock you could see in the store. In the digital world, the equivalent is you scan a barcode, and I was talking to Kenny at lunch, we're all technologists in some ways in this room. How many times do you scan a barcode? And the common answer is product not found. When you get this kind of problem, effectively you have a digital out of stock. I'd like to send a bit of context here. We've heard, obviously I know Scanby quite well, and they do great campaigns for people. The trouble is there are literally thousands of online applications that you can download. So we don't see the problem as being the Tesco app in the Tesco store or the Sainsbury's app in the Sainsbury's store. They have a controlled set of data, which is the data they have about the products that they list. The problem is generic third-party applications, and I'm not going to knock anybody here, but as a consumer, you do not know where the data comes from. That's a massive issue for the consumer, who probably doesn't know they've got that issue, but it's equally a massive issue for a brand. Excuse me, I want a drink as well. I won't share Kenny's glass. So there's a massive problem. I remember standing, not to name drop too badly, but I was standing in the boardroom of Nestlé, overlooking Geneva. And we were going through this as being a problem. And the board was sitting there, and I demonstrated an application, and I scanned their product. It said product not found, and then it invited me to be the authoritative source of data about that product. So when you look in the eyes of a chief marketing officer of a multi-billion-dollar corporation and say you don't know me, you certainly don't employ me, you spend billions on your brand, yet I'm the person who's going to represent your brand on the web. Anybody else using that application after me will then get that same information. Not so bad unless it's a competitor. We had some, I can imagine a competitor, how many calories does this product have in? How many digits do you allow me to key in? You know? So this was an issue for them. The issue was that effectively they had no control on third-party applications of what data a consumer got. I'll take a different tack on the information. I, again, know what Scanby do with the metrics of their capture, etc. I'm just saying that there is a difference between fact and opinion. If I had a child with peanut allergy, much as I love Kenny, I don't think I'd ring Kenny up and say, do you think there's any peanuts in this? You know, is it okay to feed it to my kid? But you might if you want to know what is their opinion about the product. So we simply take the factual information, which in my opinion is best coming from the brand. That's the numbers that are on the label. That's all we're doing at the moment is the label rather than the extended label. Because applications are using this data to drive consumer behavior. There are applications out there where I can key in my personal preference. There's not an app, but I think somebody should write it, by the way. I use an example of, we could have the xenophobe app. And I would be allowed to put every country in the world that I don't like. And being English, that would probably be quite a few of them. And if I then scanned the product, it could come up to me and say, no, it's on your personal embargo list. So the data is being used to drive behavior via an application. And if that data is being used, in my opinion, that data has to be correct. Okay, so as I said before, our job is to add value for our members. They pay my wages and to pay the wages of everybody. There's two other people, by the way, middle of the room, GS1 Ireland. They pay their wages as well. So we have to act for our members. And there's really two things, as I mentioned earlier. One is the visibility in the digital world. We know that e-commerce and m-commerce is driving, it's a key growth factor for them, and they want to be involved. And that missing and incorrect product information in the mobile and the web applications is this equivalent of a digital out of stock. Clear that one first. The second one is there is modern regulatory requirements. The biggest one is a regulation which you may not have heard of. It's EU 1169. It's kind of burnt on my brain. And what it basically says is that by the end of next year, I'll take this slowly, it will be illegal to sell any food or beverage product on any website anywhere in the EU if you cannot provide to the consumer at the point of purchase all of the information which is available on the physical label. So if we just let that sink in. We've already had legislation which says you cannot make a product unless you put a nutritional panel on and ingredients, etc. That's the law today. You won't find any product in Europe in food and beverage that doesn't have that label. They have now extended that to say it will be illegal to sell it online unless all of that information is there for the consumer, free at the point of purchase. No good saying, when you get it, you'll be able to read it. I should not, as an online purchaser, be in any way disadvantaged over the physical purchaser. If you think that through, that means that every brand who sells any product anywhere in Europe has to provide to the websites that are selling that brand this digital version of the label. The problem is most of the brands don't know most of the websites that are selling their product anywhere in Europe. They're getting it through importers, they're getting it through distributors, etc. So if they don't make the data available, that everyone, open data so that the website can get the information, then they'll lose sales without even knowing because they weren't selling to that person. It's just the supply chain has stopped buying it and stopped selling it. Oops. So what do we do? With the backing of the Consumer Goods Forum, and for those of you who don't know, the Consumer Goods Forum is the 25 largest retailers and 25 largest CPGs in the world, and it's only the CEOs that can sit on it. So you have Muhtar Kent of Coca-Cola, you have all the CEOs. They basically said, okay, what can GS1 do about this? We are not a solution provider, we're a standards organization. So in typical fashion, we said the way to do it then is to standardize that data set. Now that data set was already standardized for B2B, so we didn't have to do any new attributes, if you like, but we will agree a set of attributes that will cover, for example, this EU regulation where you need 43 attributes. They're all standardized anyway. And we'll set up a framework where we will publish a free standard, I'll use the word free, the free standard that says anyone who wants to build what we call an aggregator, these are the data that you have to handle, and we will also give you the interoperability messages between the aggregators. So all we will do is standardize the data set and standardize the way that the aggregators talk to each other and where the index will be in the middle. We have not yet standardized the API for applications to get data from there. That's something I'd like to progress with OMA because it's not our core competency. So that's what we did. We built this framework. And the way it works really is you have three players in this. The brands themselves provide the information. We've been quite kind of firm about this. The brand has to take responsibility for the data. It's owned by the brand, they must keep it updated. And they will enter their data once into any participating aggregator in this network. The aggregators will then conform to the set of data standards and interoperability standards that we've published. GS1's role in that is we will certify those aggregators. There will be a certification to show they are conforming to those standards. And the third one is that internet application providers, be that on mobile phones, be that on websites, whatever, will then have access to that data through one of the aggregators. So the contract with the application provider will be with their aggregator of choice. The contract with the brand will be with their aggregator of choice, and we will give the standards within the network and do the certification. The group to do this, we have a standards process for doing this, so we've set up a joint group again with the Consumer Goods Forum. We've already done two sets of standards. We did a basic set first, phase 1 standards, which were published in January. By June, the end of this month, we will have this EU 1169 set of standards. We are then talking about what's the next set of standards. I don't think it'll be in food and beverage. I think we'll move into health and beauty because there are cosmetics regulations following closely behind the food regulations. And we will then move forward working ongoing with this group, which we call the Business Information Needs Group, which will be promoting what is the next set of standards. We'll then put it through a standards process. You may all have seen, by the way, we did have a press announcement that GS1 and the Open Mobile Alliance are collaborating on new specification. We absolutely welcome this. We think that if, and it was touched upon earlier, if out of the box a mobile phone could scan all the different types of barcodes, I'm not saying just GS1, all the barcodes that are on products out there, I think that would be a great step forward. I think also if we could get to the point where the API, for example, to connect to this brand data was available, I think that would be great. I'm not saying that applications should simply display a digital image of the label. That's not worth anything to anybody. The application should do other things as well. But in my opinion, if you're driving consumer choice based on actual data, how many milligrams of salt is in this serving? How many calories are in this serving? What are the allergens within this product? That should be trusted data. The rest of the data, absolutely fine. Great believer that you should be able to look at people's opinions, pricing, etc. We won't hold that data. We'll just hold what we call the trusted source of data. So my final message is we want to work with you. We've been in this B2B space. I think traditionally you've been in the consumer space. I think it's a marriage that's made in heaven. I think we can work together well. You bring to the table all the knowledge in this room, which we don't have. We bring to the table, I think, a very close relationship with over a million companies in 111 countries. And I think together we can do more than we can do apart. Thank you for your time. I'll try to catch you at a bit of time now.